Every history book tells the same story. Genghis Khan was a monster, a conqueror, a destroyer, a man whose armies left entire cities in ruins. And that part is real. But here is what history never told you. The same ruler who unleashed terrifying destruction also created the largest free trade zone in history. Established complete religious freedom centuries before any Western nation did. Built a communication system that connected half the world. And promoted people based on ability rather than birthright. The monster and the visionary were the same person. And that forces one of the most uncomfortable questions in history. His real name was not Genghis Khan. It was Temujin. Born around 1162 somewhere on the vast Mongolian steppe. Not into power. Not into wealth. Into a minor clan barely surviving on the edge of a divided and violent world. There was no empire. There was barely a united Mongolia. The steppe was fractured. Alliances changed overnight. Loyalty disappeared when it was no longer useful. And survival depended entirely on strength, intelligence, and relationships. Temujin's father Yosijia was a tribal leader. But that protection would not last. His father was poisoned by enemies. Temujin was still a child. And when Yosijia died, everything disappeared with him. His followers abandoned the family. His clan walked away. A mother and her children were left alone on the steppe. They hunted. They gathered food. They endured hunger. And Temujin learned his first brutal lesson. Nobody was coming to save him. His childhood was not a royal education. It was survival, betrayal, violence, hunger. And then the moment that changed everything. His wife Bote was kidnapped by enemies. Most men would have disappeared into the steppe. Temujin fought to get her back. And in doing so he began understanding something most tribal leaders never grasped. Power could not depend only on blood. It depended on loyalty. And loyalty had to be earned. Temujin began gathering people around him. Not simply because they were relatives. But because they were capable, reliable, loyal. He fought rival tribes, made alliances, broke alliances, survived betrayals. And every victory brought more followers. His greatest achievement was not defeating enemies. It was uniting people who had spent generations trying to destroy each other. He reorganized his followers, weakened old tribal divisions, rewarded loyalty, promoted men who proved themselves. And in 1206 the Mongol leaders gathered on the steppe and recognized Temujin as their supreme ruler. They gave him a new title, Genghis Khan. The fragmented tribes had become a nation. And its leader was about to unleash one of the most effective military machines the medieval world had ever seen. The Mongol army did not simply charge at enemies. It calculated. Extraordinarily mobile. Expert horsemen. Expert archers. Capable of fighting while moving at incredible speed. But their greatest weapon was not the bow. It was organization. The army was divided into disciplined units. Orders traveled through the chain of command. Scouts gathered intelligence. Commanders coordinated movements. And deception became a weapon. A Mongol force might appear to retreat. The enemy would chase. The Mongols would keep moving. Then suddenly they turned, surrounded the pursuers, and destroyed them. This was not random violence. This was calculated warfare of the highest order. Genghis Khan also incorporated engineers and specialists from conquered peoples. Chinese, Persian, Central Asian. Experts from every civilization they encountered became part of the Mongol military machine. The empire learned, adapted, and became even more dangerous. And now we reach the part that cannot be softened. The Mongol conquests were catastrophic. Cities were attacked. Populations were massacred. Agricultural systems were destroyed. Entire regions were destabilized for generations. The conquest of the Khwarezmian Empire was particularly devastating. The exact number of people killed during the Mongol conquest is impossible to know with certainty. But the scale of destruction was unquestionably immense. We should not turn Genghis Khan into a misunderstood hero. He was responsible for extraordinary violence. But here is where the story becomes strange. Because after conquest came something completely unexpected. Genghis Khan did not simply want territory. He wanted control. And controlling an enormous empire required something more than soldiers. It required systems. The Mongols inherited cities, trade routes, tax systems, religious institutions, scholars, merchants, engineers, and they began connecting them. The result was a vast Eurasian network stretching from China through Central Asia through Persia and deep into Europe. The conqueror was becoming an empire builder. Perhaps the most surprising aspect of Mongol rule was its attitude toward religion. The Mongol rulers generally did not demand that conquered populations abandon their faith. Buddhists, Muslims, Christians, Temri worshippers, and others could continue practicing their religions. Genghis Khan understood something important. Religion could create destructive conflict. But religious communities could also become useful partners in administration and stability. So instead of destroying every belief system he encountered, the Mongols often protected religious institutions and granted privileges to religious leaders. This was not modern religious equality. The Mongol Empire was still a harsh imperial system. But compared with many medieval states, its religious tolerance was striking. And it helped hold together an empire containing radically different peoples. Then came trade. The Mongol Empire controlled enormous portions of the major routes connecting east and west. Merchants could travel farther. Goods moved across continents. Ideas moved. Technology moved. People moved. Chinese products traveled west. Central Asian goods traveled east. European travelers reached territories previously impossible to access. The Mongols did not invent international trade. But they created an enormous political zone in which trade could flourish across half the known world. That is why the Mongol period became so important to the history of the Silk Road. The empire had turned conquest into connectivity. Genghis Khan is also associated with a legal code known as the Yosa. But historians must be careful here. The original text of the Yosa has not survived as a complete document. What we know comes from later sources describing its contents. So the broader picture is this. Genghis Khan imposed strict discipline. Theft was punished. Military disobedience could be deadly. Loyalty was rewarded. The system reflected the realities of a militarized society. It was not a modern constitution. But it helped impose order on people who had previously lived under competing and constantly changing tribal authorities. Consider the problem Genghis Khan faced. His empire was the largest contiguous land empire in history. How could information travel across such distances? The Mongols developed and expanded a relay network known as the Yam. Relay stations positioned along major routes. Riders could change horses. Messages could move quickly. Officials could communicate across enormous distances. Military orders traveled. Government information traveled. Trade intelligence traveled. The system became one of the empire's greatest administrative achievements. The Mongols had conquered enormous territory. Now they were learning to communicate across it. And communication was power. Another fascinating difference was the role of women. Mongol society was patriarchal. Women were not equal to men in the modern sense. But Mongol women could hold substantial responsibilities. They managed households, controlled property in some circumstances, participated in political affairs, After the deaths of powerful men, some women became extremely influential rulers. Women such as Torojin Koton and Sogatani Beki became major political figures in the empire. The Mongol world did not look like modern society. But neither was it the stereotype of helpless medieval women standing silently behind male rulers. Perhaps Genghis Khan's most revolutionary leadership idea was simple. Ability mattered more than birthright. A man's usefulness could matter more than his tribal background. This helped destroy old divisions that had kept the Mongols fractured for generations. A skilled commander could rise. A loyal follower could gain influence. A talented administrator could serve the empire. Genghis Khan understood something powerful. If you promote only your relatives, you limit yourself. If you promote people who are capable, your entire system becomes stronger. That principle helped transform a collection of steppe tribes into an imperial machine that changed the world. In 1227, Genghis Khan died. The exact circumstances remain uncertain. But his empire did not die with him. His sons and grandsons expanded it dramatically. Within decades, Mongol power stretched across enormous portions of Eurasia. The Yuan dynasty ruled China. The Chagatai Khanate controlled Central Asia. The Ilkhanate ruled Persia. The Golden Horde dominated the Eurasian steppe. The empire had outgrown the man who created it. And then comes one of the strangest chapters in this already extraordinary story. In 2003, researchers published a study identifying a Y chromosome lineage found at unusually high frequency across parts of Asia. They estimated that roughly 8% of men in a large region of Asia carried this lineage, corresponding to approximately 16 million men worldwide at the time of the study. The researchers proposed that the lineage may have originated from a man who lived around the time of Genghis Khan. The obvious candidate was Genghis Khan himself. But DNA has not conclusively proven that the lineage belonged to him specifically. The identification remains a fascinating hypothesis rather than established fact. But even as a hypothesis, it is extraordinary. One medieval ruler may have left a genetic signature carried by millions of people alive today. The most powerful conqueror in history may still be present in the world in ways science is only beginning to understand. And now we arrive at the question that refuses to disappear. How do we judge Genghis Khan? Do we remember the cities destroyed? The people killed? The terror? The conquest? We should. But do we also acknowledge what followed? The trade networks? The communication systems? The religious tolerance? The administrative reforms? The cultural exchange? The merit-based leadership? We should acknowledge those too. Because history becomes dangerous when we make complicated people simple. Genghis Khan was not a modern progressive ruler trapped in the wrong century. And he was not merely a mindless monster. He was a ruthless conqueror, a brilliant organizer, a terrifying military strategist, a political revolutionary, and a builder of one of history's greatest empires. All at once. That is what makes his story so uncomfortable and so fascinating. History loves simple villains. History loves simple heroes. But real people rarely fit either category. Genghis Khan forced history to confront that contradiction. The man who destroyed cities also built systems. The conqueror who brought terror also created connections. The tribal warrior became the ruler of the largest contiguous empire the world has ever known. And nearly 800 years later we are still arguing about what he truly was. So perhaps the real question is not whether Genghis Khan was a hero or a monster. Perhaps the harder question is this. When a person creates extraordinary progress while causing extraordinary suffering, which part should history remember? And if we erase one side to make the story easier, are we still telling history? Or are we simply creating a legend? What do you think Genghis Khan truly was? Drop your honest answer in the comments below. And subscribe to Unveiled History, because the truth is always more powerful than the myth.